Hey, my name is Kailash, this is my dad Kamal, and we are here for the first episode of the Leadership Elite podcast, where we talk about what skills, tools, and strategies leaders need in order to thrive in the new world, as well as teach other leaders the skills that they need in order to survive and thrive.
So here's what happens. In life, we get along really well, and then we're going to take a leap. And sometimes we get really scared, and we go backwards. We believe every 7 years you need to take a leap at 7, 14, 21. And we're at different stages of our lives. Kailash is much younger than me, if you have noticed that. I'm a lot older. I've got more scars on my back. You're yet to get the scars. But what we're going to do is talk about things that can help you make that leap in your relationship, in your career, with your health. We're going to look at how you let go of the past and create something new.
I'm really excited to have an intergenerational conversation where we talk about from my generation, Gen Z, all the way to your
Gen X. The challenges that your generation are going to face are going to be different from ours. There's sometimes we can't give you advice. You're going to have to learn it yourself. What we can do is talk about the void that you feel, the uncertainty that you feel, because you're going to have different leaps. I'm going to have different leaps. So please join us on this journey. Learn how to make the leap in your life. Kailash and I are going to discuss some of the key elements that we learned from today's book, Legacy by James Kerr. Ridiculously powerful book. Kailash, I want to give you one of the most powerful things that you can ever get in business and in life.
Yep, and it's perfect to clean my room. I think you've been asking me for a very long time now, and you've never actually given me a broom before. So what's behind this, and why are you giving me a very long broom, probably from Bunnings?
You know, in the book Legacy, there's been a huge turnaround in the All Blacks. As you know, All Blacks, amazing.
Yep. We've seen them smash the Wallabies on multiple occasions in the Blood is Low Cup.
Full disclosure, we are Wallabies fans.
We have to be.
So it's kind of hard to talk about the All Blacks.
It is.
But it is a brilliant book, and we want to talk about some of the key ideas. And one of the biggest ideas in it is sweeping the sheds. So the key story here is that most of the time when you see people at elite levels, they are just focusing on the main things, making sure that they do the big items. And sometimes they lose touch with themselves.
And I think one of the stories that they talked about in this book was that after every single big game, all of the All Blacks, including the senior leaders of the team, would make sure that their training room and that their change room was spotless, that there was no marks, there was nothing there, and they would literally use a broom like this and sweep the sheds.
Yeah, so it's really funny. This broom is a high performance tool. And it's because humility breeds high performance. When I go to conferences or do training in organizations, at the end of the training day, like the full day, you'll see coffee cups, you'll see rubbish everywhere. And in some places, they just walk out. But in some organizations, you can see the most senior people cleaning up afterwards. And that blows my mind.
There's a very famous quote that talks about this idea. Tom Hardy talks about it, about how you should treat a CEO and a waiter with the same level of respect. And I really like this idea of sweep the sheds because yes, it's also about humility, but it's also about gratitude. It's about being respectful for absolutely everyone and to show, hey, it is my job to clean up after myself.
So I've been in corporate life for about 40 years-ish.
Getting old.
Thank you. I didn't need that. Yeah. But I've also been coaching CEOs for the last 20 years and senior leaders. And it's really funny. You can almost predict success. You can almost predict success by knowing how humble a person is, whether they're coachable, because humility directly is related to coachability. And you've seen this in your teams with your friends, is that they're great at what they do, but they're not coachable. They're not humble enough to be coachable.
Totally agree. And I think some of the high performers that I see that are quite young, what they've gotten right is that they've understood that they're willing to do almost any task because they've understood the importance it will have for the mission. I think some people I've met and talked to, they're willing to do things, but they're not willing to do the things like sweep the sheds because they think it's above them.
So I know so many people that really want to start their own business. And I remember when I wanted to start my own business, I was at this great salary. You were about 4-ish. I had this great title. And when I walked in the room, everybody would go, oh my gosh, you're the senior director of such and such, or you're the head of such and such. And everybody would return my call. And I wanted to start this business. But one of my biggest fears is, oh my God, when you start your own business, when you do a startup, you're everything. You're the janitor, you're the CEO. And I think a lot of people get stuck in life because they're not willing to be humble, to Eat the humble pie.
When we were doing Academy of Speakers in one of our first programs, like we were teaching kids, they were under 12 years old, and we were literally the janitors there, making sure we had to clean up after them. It wasn't just teach public speaking, it was absolutely doing everything. And I think that's sort of where I sort of had to learn this lesson firsthand.
Yeah, you had to go to the bathrooms and make sure it was spotless for the next people. We didn't want to lose our bond. But I think that goes to the point is, how do you practice humility? You look at a lot of leaders now, global leaders, there's gold everywhere. They're talking about, I am the greatest, make things great again. How do you make sure that you stay humble?
One of the ways I like to stay humble is by doing things that make me feel extremely uncomfortable. And by doing that, I've realized that, oh, okay, I'm not great at absolutely everything. I'm just in this small bubble. I think another thing that I love to do is try and talk to absolutely anyone. I think what I've realized is most people are comfortable to have a conversation. They're just not comfortable to be the first one to actually start and initiate that conversation. And by being able to speak to a lot of different people, you understand what it means to show humility to others and understand where other people are coming from.
So I would say I bullshit myself. I think I could be a lot more humble than I am. I try to be humble, but I think everybody bullshits themselves a little bit. One of the biggest ways to practice humility is to ask for feedback. Full disclosure, your mum and I, there'll be a lot of instances where I say, yeah, I'm a great husband, I'm a great dad. But when my wife told me about mental load, that was a real humbling moment. I go, yeah, I ask her what I can do with respect to the kids, but I wasn't taking a lot of the mental load. It's really important not to bullshit yourself when you're thinking about humility.
Ready?
Yep. Done.
So, why am I passing you a ball? It's an NFL ball, but for today, let's imagine it's a rugby union ball.
Can I just say, you had one job, and that job was to get the right props.
Well, I must say, that is actually your ball. We don't have a rugby ball, which
We
is a
do
bit
have a
sad.
rugby ball. I think we've lost it.
I think we've lost it. Yeah.
Okay. So, to the point. Why are you throwing me a ball?
Well, one of the chapters of the book, James Kerr Legacy, is all about this idea about passing the ball. It's not about hogging it. It's not about being a star player. It's about working in a team. And the best way to do that is you have to pass the ball.
So it's a really funny thing is around stewardship. So they talk a lot about that they don't own the jersey.
Yeah.
What do?
They are just a steward for the jersey.
I think it's a great mindset to take, is that we don't own anything in our lives. We don't own our bodies. We've got to give it back one day. We don't own this planet. We've got to give it back. I think we've lost a lot of that sense of stewardship because it's really about, oh, how do I get ahead? I don't blame people. It's like when you go to school, it's about your marks. It's about whether you're getting an HD or not. It's not about did everybody else get an HD.
I like this idea of this chapter because it shows this idea that you are playing for something bigger than yourself. And I think in team sports or working in startups especially, your goal is not to be the best player. Your goal is to make sure that the goal of what you're working on is to be achieved. And most of the time, that is by working with others in order to make sure that you can get it done.
So I've seen some great leaders that really embody this concept of stewardship. One was David 30. I got to meet David 30 when I was doing some work at Telstra. And when he was talking about his role as the CEO, it really was about stewardship of the brand, the Telstra brand, stewardship of Australia. Think about how many digital threats we're getting, making sure we got infrastructure to talk to the right people. And I am so impressed by leaders that step up, not to get the maximum they can in terms of the share options, but having a stewardship for the brand, the community, and the country.
Totally agree. I think one of the things that I loved about this chapter was how it sort of relates to a family dynamic. Dad and I, we spend a lot of time together, and there's so many times in the city where people think I'm him. I think this idea of standing on someone's shoulders instead of being in their shadow is really important, especially when you've got a family that may be in the same professional career.
So I have to share, there's one thing I do like about you, and you bring this up a bit. I think you said to someone that you're not a self-made, and then you really owned that.
I don't really think that I could be considered a self-made person when I am the product of my environment, be my parents, my upbringing, my school, or even living in Australia. A lot of who I am is a result of other people shaping and giving me that mentorship and support.
The most important thing is that we are stewards, and as you've grown up, I've kind of thought, well, I'm a steward for the family. I'm going to make sure I provide and make sure I can look after you. But as you grow older, you start to think you're more than stewards. I feel a sense of ownership and stewardship for Australian values. I feel very Australian, and I look at the world and I think Australia needs a lot more of our mateship, our camaraderie, our kind of sense of give it a go, mate, and the sense of a fair go, that equality piece. And that's really important. What was that phrase, a society thrives when old men plant trees that they'll never sit under the shade of? I love that quote. Stuffed it up, but you know what I'm talking about.
I love this idea that the name on the back doesn't mean as much as the emblem or the logo on the front. Your job is to be there for the team or the community that you are part of.
So I see a lot of young people say, I don't have purpose. And I get that. Sometimes it can feel, because we live in such a transactional society. It's about the likes, it's about the clout you've got. I think one of the biggest purposes or kind of stewardship that we have is around our environment. I think if you can get more attuned to that, we are stewards of this planet, we don't own it, I think that can be really powerful. What do you think?
I totally agree. So Dad, why do we have a red glass and a blue glass in front of us right now?
There's a metaphor in the book Legacy, and it talks about how when you are in a team, when you're in a high stressful situation, that you want blue mindset rather than red mindset. And the difference is a blue mindset is you're focused, you're challenged, you're not chilled, you're on fire, you're on.
You're wired.
You're wired.
Yeah.
And the red is you're scared,
Yep.
you're fearful, you're anxious about the scoreboard. And what they talk about in this book is that how do you generate the blue mindset rather than the red mindset?
So in the book, it's all about the All Blacks, one of the most high-performing teams. These people are under incredible pressure. Sometimes they have to make split-second decisions. And some of it is to do with the training that they've had, but a lot of it is also to do with instinct. So how do you go from a red mind to a blue mind?
You're talking to an ex-monk here. So one of the things you do as a monk is you learn a lot about your mind and how your mind works. So there are a lot of techniques that have been written in the book. Obviously, we talk about them a lot. But one of the main things I would say is the haka. The haka switches you on. It switches on your nervous system. And I think that's what we don't do sometimes. I do a lot of presentations. And I go to a lot of corporate presentations. And some of them, they're boring as batshit. It's because the person is more worried about what other people think of them rather than serving, number one. Number two is they're not switched on. They get up to the stage and says, hello, I'm really excited to be here. No, you're not. So if you're going to have that aggression, if you're going to have that focus, I think that's what the haka does. And how cool is it to see the All Blacks perform the haka?
Totally agree. Even though sometimes it means they're crushing the Wallabies. A question that I have is, how do you get from the red mind to the blue mind?
A couple of things. So before I go on stage, I will do my own personal haka. So every single time I go on stage, I do my deep breathing. I do my moves to make sure I jump up and down. I look like a total and utter idiot. So you try and do it behind the stage. So many times people going, is this guy okay? What's wrong? Should we call people in? But no, it's something to get your nervous system into the game. So you're going from training day to game day. That's number one. Number two is you've got to be careful not to be too elevated. It's like you just told me right now when I get really excited. And we're on a podcast, we're trying to talk about some stuff, but I sometimes bring that presentation energy, so you've got to calibrate that energy.
Totally agree.
So the next thing for me is breathing. When you're a monk, like I spent many, many years, is just focusing on my breathing. It's such a weird thing, right? We all can breathe. Your breath really determines whether you're going to be in the blue state or the red state. So being conscious of your breath.
Totally agree. I think for me personally, I do what you're saying with the breath, but one thing that I've recently tried is that the sauna ice bath mix. And I found that to be really interesting because sauna relaxes you and the ice bath just gets your mind wired and ready to go. And it's a perfect mix that I found that if I do that in the morning, my mind is quite focused for the day ahead.
I have to admit, ice baths scare the crap out of me, number one. It reminds me of being a kid in the ashram or the monastery, so I don't like it. Number two is I only survived in the ice bath 3 minutes, but you've done more than that. Tell me about that.
So I've done 10 minutes in the ice bath, and I find the first minute sucks. You're like, why am I there? I regret every single decision I make. And then 1 minute to 5, you're sort of getting comfortable with it. And then after 5, you can experience the stillness where you can think about absolutely everything with extreme clarity. I think some of the best decisions are made there, but it really gets my mind from a red glass that we have now, a red mind, all the way to a blue mind. What else do you recommend for someone else trying to get from a red mind to a blue mind?
So one of the things is sometimes you're going to be in a red mind and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah. How do you go from a red mind all the way to a blue mind?
So that's really important. And I think breathing we talked about.
Yep.
So I think one of the most important skills is to learn what to do in what mind. For example, when I'm in the red mind,
Yep.
I've got to be careful not to open my mouth.
Yep.
I've never said things that I've been really proud of when I've been in the red mind. I say things that are against my value system. So learning how to shut up is so important.
Yep.
Let me give you an example. I come home, your bag is in the foyer, your jackets are being thrown everywhere.
All the things I do to piss you off.
Yeah, wait a second, I haven't finished. There are bowls in the sink that you didn't even rinse, you didn't put in the dishwasher, and I'm getting really mad. And it could be late in the afternoon, I've had a tough day. I've got two options. Option number one is lose my shit. And I have done that occasionally, but I'm trying to, as a dad, is not to lose it. Because what I've realized is two things. Number one is we break connection. Yep. And number two is think you might respect me less if I lose my shit. And I'm out of control. So I think a big thing is learning what not to do. So I try not, and when I'm really, really red, I go really quiet, right? I try not to open my mouth. I'm not doing passive aggressive. I'm just going, if I say something right now, So I think a big skill, especially for me as a man, has been really learning how to keep my mouth shut and just try and stay calm.
So these are our thoughts on James Kerr Legacy. It's an absolutely amazing book. It's one of my favorite books to recommend for people who want to understand the concept of leadership but don't want to spend hours reading boring textbooks on leadership.
So here's the funny thing. One of my clients gave me this book and I didn't read it. Kailash read it and encouraged and inspired me to read it, and we both read it together. It's a really cool book, even if you're not interested in rugby, or even if you play that game that we both don't talk about, which is cricket, but it's a really great handbook on life and how you can thrive and flourish in life.
Looking forward to seeing you at our next couple of episodes, and stay tuned.